We started?
Yes, you're live.
Okay. Okay. We're having my phone, I'm sorry. Tonight we're starting the zoning board meeting. Today is, what is today? June 13th? I can't remember. 15th, right?
16th.
16th. Zoning hearing board meeting for tonight. Everybody looks like they're present. Let's do a little roll call. I'm here, obviously. Tony Zamparelli. I see Mike Tritt. I see Pam Lee. I see Pete Solar, and I see is Matt Collins. Like, where's Matt? There he is. Is that Matt? Where's Matt at? I don't see him there.
I'm right here.
Okay, there's Matt.
Look for the water.
Looks like we're all here. Peter's here. Okay. Before we start, we got a few appeals tonight. We have a couple continuances. Let's take care of them first. I do notice we have two continuances. One is for the Timco application. They want to continue it to when, Jim? When is that one to be continued to? July. I'm trying to see when that
July
is.
21st.
July 21st. I don't see an issue with that. I don't want this to go on forever. But I understand. I mean, does anybody have an issue with doing this one more continuance for these people for July 21st?
No objection.
And so, Mr. Chairman, just so it's on the record, Ed Murphy, their attorney, had reached out about this. None of his witnesses were available tonight, and that's
You're breaking up, Adam.
Adam, yeah, we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. My audio is usually pretty good. The witnesses were not available tonight.
Unavailable.
Correct.
Okay. So, would somebody like to make a motion for a continuance?
I'm moving a continuance for Appeal 20-1857 to July 21st.
Second.
Second. Okay. Any discussion?
No.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So move. It's done. Okay. All right. That's continued. We have a second one. And this is for, what's this one? This is appeal number, what is this one? I'm trying to look for the appeal number. I don't see it here.
19-1846.
There you go. And this is, this was something that the attorney is withdrawing, and this on behalf of Mrs. Jimenez. Is this correct? And they're looking for continuance. Do they know how much time do they need?
It's a 60-day request, and their attorney has withdrawn his appearance in both this and a matter in front of Judge Chronicle.
Mm-hmm.
He's requesting 60 days for them to prepare everything properly, and a letter was sent to that effect.
Is something we should be concerned about the time there? Are we all right with the time?
Well, plans were submitted to Jim Majewski, and I guess they just want to know from Jim if those are sufficient, and if they need additional plans, they may need an additional extension. But right now, as long as that is okay, they're okay with the 60 days to prepare on their own, and then be, I guess for the August, the mid-August, the second August meeting.
Jim, have they submitted any plans yet?
Yes, their attorney submitted plans. The plans are good enough to consider the matter at hand. There may be some code issues when we do a review, but they've substantially complied with requirements for the.
And why do we need 60 days instead of 30, just for them then? Any reason why we have? I mean, I don't care. I'm okay with it. Does anybody have any objection to this continuance?
This is Kyle on the tech team. I wanted to let you know that they're in the call with you here, the applicant as well. Okay.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Good. And who am I talking to? Mr. Maria Jimenez. Who am I talking to?
Diana Antero.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear you.
I'm Diana Antero, her daughter.
Okay. And why do we need 60 days?
Okay. It's because we couldn't afford lawyer fees anymore. So, because of the whole COVID thing.
So we are kind of not prepared at all. Like, so we just want more time to, get everything together and actually like be able to work without a lawyer, or
Okay.
maybe more money to maybe get one.
And you have architectural plans you have submitted to Mr. Majewski?
Yes.
Okay, and you'll be ready to represent yourselves in 60 days.
Yes, that's the plan.
Anybody have an issue with this?
No.
No.
Okay, I don't either. If somebody would like to make a motion.
I'll move to continue appeal number 19-1846 until the August, would it be 25th? Or no, the 18th, right?
18th.
The
18th.
I'm sorry, to the 18th, August 18th, hearing board, hearing date.
Okay.
I'll
Anybody,
second it.
any discussion?
No.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so it's approved. So we move that continuance to, would you say August 18th? Is that what you said, Pam?
Yes.
All right. All right, we'll see you then. Thank you very much. All right, that's over. Anything else there? Okay, let's move on. So that's okay with the housekeeping for that. Appeal number 1. What do we have here? First one would be, and we'll go by order here, which would be appeal number 20-1861, which would be James Millward from 341 Sherwood Drive. If he would like to, is he available?
Yep, I'm in.
There you are. If you would like to tell us what you would like what you need, would you like to tell us what you're trying to do? Now's the time.
Tony,
No,
let me
wait,
just,
we have some exhibits to enter, madam.
yeah, let me just mark the exhibits quickly.
I'm sorry.
There's a number of them only because I was erred on the side of caution. I didn't want to, wasn't sure if some of them were separate or all together, but
Okay.
we're going to have A1 as the application,
Mm-hmm.
A2 as the site plans, A3 was the reasons for the requested relief, which is in response to questions 7 and 8 in the application. A4 is the impervious surface breakdown. A5 is the shed information from Bristol Sheds LLC. And there A6 is a pool plan / dig plan that was submitted with that. A7 is the hot tub and gazebo sketch plan with some information about the jacuzzi / hot tub that's being put in. A8 is an additional site plan with some of the setback information. B1 is the proof of publication. B2 is the proof of posting. And B3 is the notice to the neighbors.
Okay. All right. James, if you'd like to tell us what you're doing, now will be the time.
Absolutely.
No, it's a court report. I need to swear the witness.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. My mistake.
No problem. Sir, do you solemnly swear a testimony about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now's the time.
All right. So 2 years ago, my mother purchased this house back in 1990. And I was married in 96, moved out with my wife, and I moved out and lived in Golden Roost for 20 years. We moved in. I had my mom put her in Chandler Hall and rebuilt this house about approximately 4 years ago. We did everything from soup to nuts, all the way down to the sticks. There was nothing left. I mean, there was no backyard. There's no concrete. There's no patio. There's nothing out back at all at the moment, other than my shed. The walkways out front aren't there that need to be done because we put the porch on, the landscaping got added. There was just a lot of work that got done over time. So basically now, 4 years later, my wife and I would like to put the pool in. Our kids have gotten older. We have a 23-year-old and 18-year-old. One of them is a nurse at St. Mary's, and the other one is going into college for nursing at Holy Family. We will be I'm trying to keep everybody home. You know what I mean? I'm trying to keep everybody close-knit and keep my family around. And in this area. So we would like to actually put this pool in, add some patio stuff to finish it up. But the object of what is going on, if you look at the drawing that's in front of you here, and the green arrows where it shows gutter drains underground, I had to put all this stuff in because we had some serious erosion, really bad runoff. And behind my house is the retention basin. I live on the corner of Sherwood and Friar, and I have that whole retention basin behind us. So I moved all of my gutters underground to go to there, because my runoff I had a fence put in 3 years ago, and I literally lost almost a foot of ground underneath my rear fence where that yellow line runs. So I ended up putting in a small garden wall and running all of my gutters through the base of that to try to solve my runoff, which I think I've done. I've done that quite well. But now I want to put the pool in and stuff, which is actually going to level out my yard. My yard will be graded, and we'll go from there. For the most part, I think that's pretty much it, other than the shed. The shed actually was my fault a few years back when I put the fence in. I actually put the shed is actually there. That the plan that I sent you is actually the actual build plan from when I had the shed built. It sits on a stone pad. It's not on a concrete pad. It is movable if needed, but because of my erosion, I really didn't have any other place to put it.
Okay.
So I'm looking to I'd like to keep it there if possible.
So we have a dimensional issue there with the shed, obviously. But
Yes.
I had a question about the gutters that are going underground. Is that something you did by permit? Was that something that was designed and looked at by our engineer?
No, I didn't think that I didn't think that I had to, because according to what I was reading on the LMT site, I was able to use my runoff as into open space, into the retention basin where it was all going anyway. Am I wrong by saying that?
Well, I don't know. Those gutters, are they coming down from the rain spouts from the roof? Is that where they're coming?
Yes.
Is that something that would be appropriate to go into the retention basin?
Yes, that's something that it's common that it drains out that way.
Okay.
Obviously, the reason why we a lot of times want permits for this is that if a contractor does it, creates a problem for the homeowner, then they have some matter of recourse, and that's something that the homeowner extending the roof leaders probably should have been a permit, but it's not.
Hey, Jim, in your opinion, the impervious surface is obviously increased from 16.55 to 25.
Yes.
Is any of that? I'm looking at the mitigation here. Does any of that make a difference there with that gutter runoff? How do we look at that?
Well, one thing that's not shown in the plans that needs to be done is they do need to add, according to our ordinances, not the zoning ordinance, but our stormwater management ordinance, they do need to control runoff from the additional creation of impervious surfaces, either through the planting of trees, an underground seepage bed or something like that, in order to soak up some of the water before it gets to the basin.
James, is that something you've considered? And would you consider that if we wanted to approve that with that condition? Would that be okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I was planning to do some flower beds along the fence. I was actually planning to try and probably put a French drain behind the pool, just in case if there was any runoff, it would go out through the gutters off of my house. I mean, just to go back a step, the reason why I did that, I'm sorry I didn't put it on a permit, but the reason why I did that is because with the gutters is because I had so much erosion. It was unbelievable. Over 3 years' time, I dropped almost a foot at my back fence. Absolutely. I was going to put, if you're looking at the plan here, right above where it says on the corner, above the shed where it says 25.258, my fence sits right in front of that. And I've already put in a couple bushes along that fence line, and my fence on the other side of the house where it comes off of my driveway, there's the walkway, the small walkway that I want to put in. My fence comes across there about 6 feet, and then it runs all the way back to the property line on the back corner. I'm also going to I was going to put bushes along that also, probably some arborvitaes and a few other things. We were probably going to add some flower beds around the pool, along the back fence with some rose bushes and some stone gardens with other plants in order to soak up the water. Yeah, so that, to make a long story short, yes, I did plan on adding to soak up some of this water.
Jim, he's talking about all plants as water sucking plants to mitigate this. Is that appropriate for this, or does he need some kind of dry well or something that's would be more better, in my opinion?
I think a combination of that could work, and he'd have to work with our township engineer to come up with something that would be appropriate.
There's
I think traditionally we haven't relied upon necessarily just water soaking plants, just because the next homeowner, they could be removed. So traditionally, since I've been on, it's not been that long, a couple of years, but we require something a little bit more like an underground seepage bed.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting to, that they could do that, but it'd have to be, like he had said, a French drain or an underground seepage bed, and it would probably have to be something more substantial just than flower beds, unless the flower bed area beneath was like a stone trench that would actually absorb the water, and or trees planted.
I agree with Pam. She's right. We have for many years have used something more permanent that can't be changed for the next homeowner. The dry well or stuff like that. Are you willing to work with the engineer and Jim to do something like that? Besides plants, we don't really. You're looking at a lot of percentage here, and plants we don't really like. Is there anybody else on the board want to make a comment on this?
I would just like to say that I agree that it needs to be something more substantial. It is a significant amount of area. I also had another question for Jim here. You mentioned porch. Was that, when you mentioned that, was that something you added, or was that something that was there that you rebuilt?
No, the porch in the front, that was all permanent that was all permitted when we did the house 4 years ago. It's that front section where it says 39 feet, and right in front of the walkway, going in front of walkway 1 and walkway 2 connect to it. That porch was added 4 years ago when we did the full addition, when we did the full plan of the house.
Okay, was there any infiltration associated with that expansion?
As far as I know, it was not. It was all done through Paul Davis Restoration, and it was done through Hacienda Design, where the plans were submitted through them.
Jim,
I don't think it hit the threshold because you're only at 16% impervious cover rates right now, so it wouldn't have necessitated having anything done at that point in time.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Okay. I did mention a French drain, and if you zoom back out on that plan, where my gutters run back to the property line, and I did mention a French drain, I was actually considering going from one drain all the way to the other drain and putting probably a 60-foot French drain in all the way across there. Would that be suitable for our runoff?
That would have to be sent to Jim Majewski for his review on that, and he would have to give you that number. I'm sure he could, but until you have that plan, Jim would have to review that to see if that would be okay. Any thoughts on that, Jim?
Actually, I've done some rough calculations in anticipation of this, and a 60-foot long trench would probably be sufficient. We just have to work out what the depth and what the width of that would be.
So he could empty both of those gutters into something like that, and based on what you're saying off the cuff, would be sufficient.
Yeah, it would need to be a substantial one. Usually we're talking about 20, 25-foot trenches. He's talking 60 foot, and that's kind of what you need for cement purposes. And we'd have to work out the details. As always, I always like the subject to the review and approval of the township engineer. That way, they can work through and figure out what the length, width, depth would be.
Jim, you hear what Jim's saying.
Yeah.
Are you? I think that's going to be the only way we would consider this, and I would hope that you would be okay with that.
Yeah. I did plan on doing that anyway, but I just didn't do it yet because if everything was to go through and go in, the yard would come up, and I didn't want to bury it too deep when I put the French drain from one end to the other across the back.
When you say I'm sorry. When you say the yard would come up, what do you mean? You're going to raise the grade?
Well, it's going to come up. It's going to come up probably maybe 4 inches. It's still going to slope, but I had such runoff. I had such erosion that I needed to bring it back up again because the yard slopes away real bad.
You would have to submit that to Mr. Majewski for approval. Okay. And as long as Jim's okay and you're okay with it, and I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it. I can't speak for the rest of the board, but it does sound like a way out. Anybody else got a comment on that?
Yeah, I have a question for Jim. You know, different parts of, you know, depending upon the neighborhood, and I'm not sure about this one, this is an older home. So the impervious service requirement is 18%. So I'd like to know from Jim, what are we trying to get the effective rate back down to 18? Or, you know, I think he mentions 24% in his
25.1 is what it ends up to be.
Right, but I think you're trying to look for an effective 24% impervious rate, and I'm not sure if I'm sorry, I lost the last name.
Pam.
Yes.
What we would be looking for, and what it's required by ordinance, is that they need to control the stormwater runoff from all additional impervious surface. And that includes the shed, even though it's already there. It technically wasn't permitted, therefore they need to control runoff from that. Sidewalks that were added, full decking and everything. So they're basically going to take that down to what the current number is, which is about 16.6%.
I agree with that.
Basically, you don't have, in this case, you don't have to worry about an effective number because they're well below the starting number. So basically, if you were so inclined, grant variance would be for an impervious surface ratio of 25.2%, subject to review and approval of the stormwater management system by the township.
What was that number you mentioned, that percentage number, Jim?
Yeah, I'm confused, Jim, by what you just said.
Typically, what we have in a lot of our cases is 18% is what's allowed under the ordinance. But as you know, many of the properties in the township already exceed that 18%. They're at 21 or 22. And so what the zoning hearing board often does is say, we don't expect you to go back past what was when your house was initially built, but just take us back either to where you are now, to an effective rate of where you are over the 18%, or maybe some number slightly lower. In this case, you don't have to worry about that because they're under the 18%. They have to control all the stormwater that they're creating.
So we would want to be back to 16.55, correct?
Right.
Jim,
Isn't that a little unreasonable? I'm sorry, one quick question. Just to follow up on this. I mean, don't we want an effective rate of 18? I mean, that's asking him to do more than what's required.
Well, this is actually a requirement of not our zoning ordinance, but our stormwater management. It's chapter 173 of the township code requires that you control all impervious surface gas generated. And that's from the start of the date of the ordinance. So whether it was 16.6 to 25.2 or 18.6 to 25.2 or 25 to 25.2, it's that additional impervious surface that needs to be controlled.
Jim, was the detention system designed with a understanding of maximum build out for the code at that time, or was it just based on what was built?
We don't have the information on that.
Okay, thank you.
Although I should note, and maybe Mr. Millward can confirm. I don't know that these basins have ever filled up to overflow. Maybe.
No, I've been here since 1990, and the highest I ever saw it was the storms in '96. Since then, they've been fine. I mean, they've come up, they've overflowed a little bit, but they've never made it into my yard. So
yeah, but the problem is like if it's designed for a 25-year storm or 50-year storm or 100-year storm, you're never going to see the point at which it overflows. But if it was designed for full build out of your subdivision, then there would be, you'd have a little bit of a benefit of it, up possibly to 18%, whatever the code was at that point in time, depending upon how it was permitted initially.
Mm-hmm.
If you actually see it overflow, then there's a catastrophic failure coming, and you have more problems going on.
No, understood. I mean, this is a pretty big basin behind me, and I mean, I have in the very corner of my yard there is a giant, I guess, metal overflow. Very, very rarely has it ever reached that metal overflow, and it that takes a lot. I mean, the worst I ever saw it was '96.
All right, so what do we have to do to get this back to where it's not going to be a problem? What percentage?
It'd be we'd have to get it back to the 16.5. It's everything has to be accounted for that's being added by Impervious.
All right. I don't think anybody has a problem with that. I'm sure you can work with Jim. James doesn't seem to have a problem with that. Is everybody okay with that? In this particular part of the appeal, there's a dimensional thing as well, but just the impervious surface issue right now. Anybody else have? Is everybody okay with
comment from any neighbors?
Sorry, Pam?
Unless there's comment from
Neighbors.
Well, I'm going to ask that. I'm just asking from you guys first. All right, do we have any neighbors that would like to participate? Is the township participating in this? Let me ask that.
Township's not participating. They were participating in the two that we had continuances on earlier.
Is there anybody in the audience or that's participating? Do we have anybody?
No comment.
Nobody?
No.
No. All right. That being said, does somebody want to make a motion for this?
Hey, Tony, we're going to talk about the shed.
Oh, the shed. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yep.
You have a dimensional issue with the shed. It should be 10 feet. It's already there, and it's at 3 feet. But is it in the right portion of the yard, Jen? We have to be in the back quarter of the yard? Is that correct?
Correct. Let me check.
It's also sitting on top of an easement, which I'm not sure what the easement's for. Assuming it's drainage.
That's a stormwater management.
Yeah, I have a question for Jim, the homeowner. Jim,
Yes.
do you have a fence going through that easement right now, correct? That
I do. Yes.
Okay. So in the case of access to that, you've agreed to remove the fence and move the shed if access was required.
Yes. I actually have a 10-foot gate right on that easement for you to access the yard if needed. On both ends of the yard, if anything had to come in.
Does your fence have a clearance underneath of it of at least 2 inches to allow water drainage?
Yes.
And you understand what Michael's saying? It'd be up to your expense if they had, okay.
Yep, absolutely.
And Mr. Zamparelli, to answer your prior question, the shed is located in the fourth of the lot furthest removed.
So it's in the right, okay. All right, I don't have any problem with the shed unless somebody else does. 3 foot's fine with me. I don't hear any of the neighbors.
Hey, Jim, the homeowner, how long have you had that fence there? Excuse me, how long have you had the shed there? And I assume that the neighbors don't have an issue with it, correct?
Yeah, I technically only have the one neighbor because I'm on the corner lot, but yeah, they have no problem at all. We're actually very good. They have a pool next to me also. It's been there since I put the fence in, and the fence went in, I think 2017. So it's about 3 years.
Is there a permit issued for that fence?
Yes. No, I don't think so. I mean, you guys approved the permit on it. because it was permitted, as far as I know.
There was. Jim, is that correct? Have you checked? Did you get a chance to check on that, Jim?
I believe that is correct.
Yeah.
We have 2 surveys of the property. One doesn't show the easement and one shows it. So it's a sort of thing.
Okay. So our motion would have to include the dimensional for the shed, the removal of the shed and the fence, if needed, that access by the township. Plus, we would have to have also the motion would involve the impervious surface issue, which would have to be an engineer drawing working with Jim Majewski to get an effective, or whatever Jim calls it, back to 16.55%. Would I be correct with that?
Actually, Tony, I would word that and that they provide stormwater management subject to the review and approval of the township engineer.
Okay.
That
Gotta
takes
use the numbers.
16.6. It's just what's required.
Okay. All right. Anybody want to make that motion?
Yep, I'll make that motion. For appeal 20-1861 is approved subject to the submission and review by the township engineer of a stormwater management plan and wording in the amendment that the homeowner will remove the fence and the shed if access is required to the easement.
I'll have a second.
I'll second.
Do we have any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion has been approved.
I have one question, if possible,
Certainly.
and it goes to Mr. Majewski. All right, so my question to you is, I'm supposed to work with the township engineer and you to come up with the stormwater management. Do I have to contact you? Should I email you? How do I do that in order to get that started?
You can email me, and I'm kind of tied up for the next couple of days. Maybe next Monday would be good.
Okay. Now I got one more question on top of that. Now, since these are approved, can I push forward? Can I have them push forward with the pool company so I can get in the scheduling and then we work together? So that's permanent, is started, or do I have to wait until after we go through the township engineer?
Well, they need to draw more detailed plans so they can get started on that. And then you can start working through, probably even with them, what your thoughts are on some of the stormwater management. And then we can work together with the township engineer to make sure that full plans are complete so that you're compliant with the zoning decision.
Gotcha. Okay, no problem.
All right. You understand all that. Don't go forward unless you have an agreement with Jim and the engineers.
Absolutely.
All right.
So, yep.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Good luck.
All right. Okay, that moves us to appeal number, my list, Craig Sanford. That's appeal number 20-1862. If you would like to step forward, wherever he is. Oh, the chickens.
Hello, how are you?
Hello. Are you
Good.
Mr. Sanford?
This is me.
How you doing?
Good, how are
You
you?
need to be sworn in first,
Okay,
and then we need to enter any exhibits you might have.
all right.
Sir, are you the only one going to testify today?
Yes,
Okay, sir, do you solemnly swear the testimony about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, Adam, is there any exhibits we need to enter?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have just a few. Exhibit A1 is going to be the application. A2 is going to be the site plans. B1, proof of publication. B2, proof of posting. And B3 is the notice to the neighbors.
All right. Go ahead and tell us what you like to do.
So I would like to have, I guess, a range of 4 to 6 chickens throughout my, I guess, lifetime here at 102 Effingham Road in Yardley. Our property backs up to the woods and to the canal. So we were thinking of a small coop behind our actual home, maybe at the top of the hill or in that. So if you look at that parcel right there where the star is, that's the parcel I was looking at. I just would like to have some chickens for eggs for I guess like homestead healthy eating. That's it. No roosters, just females.
Hello? Is that your lot? Where the store is?
All of the things highlighted in the Sharpie is. The house is in the lot in front of the star, and the star and all the other lots are just woods that we own that butt up to the canal.
Right now, so you need 5 acres normally for chickens, correct, Jim?
Correct.
Okay, and you want to have 6, so you don't, not including any roosters.
Right.
I got that. You don't have any chickens now?
My mom has some. We have them over at her house. She has a place with 10 acres in Lower Makefield as well. But there, they didn't need the variance.
Right. We have some flexibility with chickens to some amount, but it's a limited one. We don't like it to carry on to the next person.
Right.
6, 3 acres. I have to see what anybody else says. Well, let's see. Does anybody else want to comment on this? I hear you have no roosters, which is always a good thing. And then, of course, we ask the audience as well. Anybody else want to comment on this? Pam, maybe? Anybody?
Pam, maybe? Forgive my naivete. Don't you need roosters to make?
No.
Just for the
roosters for fertilized eggs.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
I thought the same thing, Pam. I got to tell you.
That's why you handed it over to me, right?
I did. I had to ask my wife. I did.
Well, I wasn't sure. I mean, I figured I'd ask the dumb question, but
well, I did too. I said, "Wait a minute, how's this work?" Anybody else? I would like some comments.
My one question is: the last time we did this, was it? I don't remember how many chickens it was for, and it was for someone who had a property. I want to say of 2 or 3 acres, but they were abutting vacant land or permanently undevelopable land.
Yeah, they were abutting
They also had goats.
Farmland preservation land.
And I think we made them get an agreement with that property owner before they could have chickens, but I don't remember how many chickens they wanted.
If I remember right, it wasn't many. It was 4 or so, and they did agree with us that it would only be for the time they lived. I don't remember about the agreement with the other property owner. I do remember it, but I don't remember all the details. Anybody else have any memory of this?
I seem to remember there was more than just chickens involved in that.
Oh, yeah?
I think there were goats too.
I think there were goats involved too. And it was like pigmy goats and they were doing show stuff or something.
Well, the pygmy goat guy we denied because all the residents came out.
No, that's a different issue with those goats. But Pam, you're correct that there was essentially, I think, some sort of nonprofit entity that had space right next to it, and they essentially had to lease that to create a larger space than they actually owned. And that was a condition that you guys put on it.
I mean, the comment here is without the roosters, chickens really aren't that noisy. So, I mean, I would say it's mostly up to the neighbors. I think if there's a concern here.
Yeah, and taking a look at the map here, it looks like it's heavily wooded. You're probably going to be at least 150, 200 feet away from your neighbor's house with his coop. Am I correct?
Yes.
I've got no issue with it.
I don't either. I would like to say I don't want it to continue on to the next property owner without approval. I feel that's how we should do it. I think that's how we did the last one. But I don't have a problem with it. There's no roosters. It's only 4 to 6 chickens. We'll have to hear from the neighbors first, see what they think. But that's what my position is.
Limited to this property owner only? I didn't think we could do that.
It runs with the land.
That's what I thought, Adam. So we can't limit it to this property owner. The next property owner, if there is a next one at some point, I suppose, automatically gets it. But I think, Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, if the next property owner does not exercise that, then it goes away. Is that correct?
they could, if they abandoned it, yeah, and also keep in mind that the same issues as far as nuisance would apply for this owner and any subsequent owner, as far as if they were, if there was issues with smell or sound or anything like that, you still have those powers, or the township, I should say, still has those powers, nonetheless.
Okay.
And if I may, the prior decision that you guys were referencing on Dolanton Road, that appeal was granted for 1 full unit of chickens, which is 30 chickens. No
Really?
more than 3 miniature goats and no unneutered billy goats. That came from Mr. Bruin. And if the applicant obtains an additional 4-acre lease from the contiguous property, 2 full units would be permitted, which would be 30 chickens and no more than 5 miniature goats. So
I remember I abstained from that one because of a conflict, but I was not against that.
Well, we're talking about this one. So where do we stand? Anybody else have any?
Do we have any neighbors?
Yeah, it's any neighbors? The township's not involved, obviously. Is there any neighbors that would like to comment?
No comment.
No neighbors?
Negative.
Oh. Well, that being said, anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. Oh, was that?
Go ahead.
I'll move to grant the variance in appeal number 20-1862 to allow no more than 6 chickens, so long as the property owner, I'm looking for the map, I'm sorry. So long as the property owner owns all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parcels that butts up to the canal.
Okay.
Do we have to add anything about the, I don't know about smell or anything about chickens? We have to worry about
No roosters.
No roosters.
Oh, that's a good one. Yes, thank you. And well, up to 6 chickens, no roost.
And maintain the chickens in a proper way to where it wouldn't be a nuisance or smell to any neighbors. I don't know. I'm just thinking. I don't want the.
I think they're always subject to the nuisance laws, regardless of whether or not we grant a variance. But forgive me if I'm wrong. Then Adam will let me know.
No, and that's what I was saying.
Okay.
No matter what you do, it allows the granting of the variance allows them to have the chickens on the smaller lot that would otherwise be required. It doesn't get them out of township nuisance requirements.
All right. Thank you, Adam. Pam, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion is passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bring us some eggs. All right. Where are we now? Our next appeal. Our next appeal is appeal number 20-1863, James and Kimberly Perry, I'll say. I hope I pronounced that correct.
Yes.
All right. And there they are. You need to be sworn in. Sworn in first.
Okay.
Swear you both in. You solemnly swear the testimony about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Adam, any exhibits?
Just a couple. We have the application as A1, the site plans as A2, the impervious surface breakdown as A3, proof of publication as B1, proof of posting B2, and the notice to the neighbors as B3.
All right. Tell us about it.
So we, since this pandemic, they shut the pool down. So we figured we'd get a pool. So that's where we're at.
I do notice that you're increasing impervious. You have a 24.6% now, and you want to increase it to 29.7%. You only are allowed 18. Have you done any improvements before that would have increased any of the impervious surface?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Jim, are these calculations correct?
Yes.
Okay. Were you planning on doing anything to mitigate here with the extra 5% impervious surface?
Yes, the engineer has on the drawings a stormwater management system.
Yeah, I see something there. Yeah. Jim, did you look at that, Jim?
Yes, I reviewed that, and their stormwater management system is an underground infiltration bed that controls all of the additional runoff that's generated by this project, which would bring them back to what it currently is existing on the property.
All right. Does anybody have any questions? Nobody? Township's not participating. Is there anybody?
Actually, I do have a question. It shows that pool equipment pad right up against the property line. Is that acceptable, Jim?
Actually, typically that needs to be 5 feet from the property.
All right. Well, that's something we can, I'm sure they wouldn't have any issue with adjusting.
Can you look that up a little bit, Jim?
And I just want to let you know, it looks like the way they have it graded is that the water is being graded towards the seepage bed.
I was just going to ask that. I see that then. All right. So if we move the pad to conform, that shouldn't be an issue. And the grading is going toward the seepage bed. That's good. You said that it works with the calculations to bring it down. Is there anybody, anything else, or do we have to ask the audience now if they have any objections or comments?
We do have public comment.
Okay. Let's bring them on.
Bring in Fred in now. His name is Fred.
Okay, Fred.
You'll want to get his last name and address too.
Fred, we're going to have to swear you in with your name, full name, and swear you in.
Okay, it's Frederick Childs, Childs.
Mr. Childs, do you solemnly swear a testimony about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, Mr. Childs, can you tell us what you think?
Actually, I was waiting. I thought maybe the adjacent neighbors, Larry Miller and Gene Burdick, might be making a comment. I believe they sent an email or letter into the board.
They did. They did.
I know that in speaking with Mr. Miller that he had concerns about water infiltrating to his property because of the grading that exists already from Knox Drive residents behind those properties, and also with the additional impervious.
I do want to mention that the engineer had checked the extra impervious surface, and he did say with the grading, it flowed right into the seepage bed, which pretty much mitigated that extra. Am I correct on that, Jim? Jim?
Yes, the way they have it graded is they building a small retaining wall about 2 feet tall with the downslope side towards the rear being lower. And we're going to take that area on the upside of the wall, which is closer to their house and where the patio is going. And that area from there is going to be graded so that it back pitches, so it's not towards the property behind, what will go back towards their house and be directed into a storm seepage event. So cut off a bit of the water that currently flows down the hill down to the property.
The neighbor's letter, Mr. Miller and Burdick, says that with this elevation, the water from the rain runoff has caused ponding in the backyard. There's also been a natural change of the grading of the land over the years, and they have installed lawn drains around the backyard perimeter of the house to help alleviate the increase in water. Is that water from their property or just from the drainage in the area? How can we ascertain this? I assume you have the letter.
I don't have a copy of the letter. When was the letter distributed?
Oh, I have it.
It was addressed to.
It was addressed to me. I'm sorry, but it does say that. Now, Jim, I understand this person's concern. Is that actually the case? Has that been because of his grading of the land, or is it just some other reason? I certainly want to understand what's happening here with this guy's property. I don't want it to be compounding his situation. Does he need any additional mitigation?
Tony, there's a Larry that's on the list here. Yes. I'm wondering if it might be worthwhile to see if he's the one who actually wrote the letter and maybe short circuit the hearsay.
Sure.
And see if Fred has any concerns of his own rather than his neighbors. I
don't disagree. I'm just saying Fred referred to the letter. That's why I brought that up. Yes, Matt, Fred, give us your concerns.
No, if Larry is on, he should speak. He has direct knowledge. I'm just echoing his concern. So I can, if he's available.
Hello.
Larry?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes, this is me.
All right, well, if you'd like to come in and be sworn in and tell us what you think, but get sworn in first.
Okay.
Miller, you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
My wife, Jean Burdick, and I live next door. We were primarily concerned about the increase in impervious space with the construction of the in-ground pool. In your letter dated May 15th, you noted the installation of an in-ground pool would increase the impervious surface to 29.7% from the allowable 18%. Now, I believe some of that, my questions have been answered, but I just wanted to read on what I have here.
Sure.
The houses on our
Go ahead.
The houses on our side of Lexington Drive have a slight increase in elevation in the back of the properties. With the elevation, water from rain runoff has caused pooling in the backyard. We have lived in our house for about 33 years and have seen a natural change of grading of the land over the years. We have installed lawn drains around our backyard perimeter of our house to help alleviate the increase in water flow. We are concerned about the increase in impervious surface that will increase the additional water flow onto the properties and want to be reassured that drainage has been done to alleviate the flow. I tried reading the schematic. The print's rather small, so I didn't see any drainage on the schematic. With less impervious surface, where will the extra excess water go? That's our question.
Jim, could you explain to him about that seepage bed and how that print shows the elevation with the numbers there? I don't know if it satisfies his concern, but can you explain to him?
Sure. If you start at the back of the house, that's the subject of his application, and go towards Mr. Miller's property, you have a paver patio. They're adding on to that with a pool and some additional paver patio. And where that paver patio ends, they're going to be putting up a small retaining wall. That wall will be about 2 feet high, roughly 1.5 feet, 2 feet high. And they're going to take the drainage from that point towards the house and back pitch it to a couple of drains that will go to an underground subsurface seepage bed. That bed will be 5 feet wide, 3 feet deep, and 30 foot long. And basically the water will go into that and sort of be stored underground. Some of it will infiltrate. The rest will just be stored there for a while until it has a chance to seep into the soil.
Mr. Miller, do you understand what he's saying about the drainage with the underground pipes heading into the seepage pit?
Yeah. One question. So, we've been here 33 years. So after 2 or 3 years, if the land settles, and there's pooling of water from rain, what additional mitigation can be done or should be considered?
Jim, can you comment on the settling of the land?
That's a tough one. That often happens in developments. Usually, if it's compacted properly, the settlement isn't anything significant. But if your land gets into a flatter portion and it sort of settles a couple of inches, well, that couple of inches can hold water. It sounds like that's the case here. The only thing that could possibly be done is if you plant some trees down along that rear property line, that could help soak up some of the water before it gets to the miller's property. If you did that in addition to the seepage bed, you get sort of a better.
Mr. Miller, if we went with Mr. Majewski's suggestion in the event of settling that you mentioned, which is possible with the addition of water sucking trees or plants, would that make you feel more comfortable?
Yes, it would.
Anybody else like to comment on this? I certainly am concerned about.
But Larry, what's your address?
1326 Lexington.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I have a question here for Jim. I realize with most storms, it's going to go to the seepage bed, but it does look like this plan creates a shallow natural pond there, so it might make sense to put vegetation there. But Jim, what's your opinion about the fact that it's a depression right there around the seepage bed?
Well, that's an area that potentially could hold water in a really heavy rain for some amount of time until it gradually becomes the sewer. And that would all be on the Perry's property.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, there seems to be there's a lot of pavers that are in the patio. Could there be an option to make those pervious to help mitigate stormwater runoff?
Well, I'm looking at the design. The design is to take that water into the seepage bed. That's the idea of that. And pavers, I don't know. I don't think they're considered pervious in this town. And I'm not sure that's a good idea. But Jim, anybody wanted to comment on that? Pete, anybody?
There are pervious paver systems, but I don't know if that's really an appropriate use here.
I agree with that.
Okay.
I mean, the seepage bed will carry the load from what per Jim Majewski's comment. I guess there's some extra capacity there because of the depression.
Correct.
Correct. Jim or Kim, is the paver patio, what's the construction that you're looking for? Is this going to be set with concrete, or is it loose laid brick, or what are you guys thinking of?
They're set with sand.
Set with sand. And what's underneath them? Are you putting in any stone, or are you just setting on earth?
Well, it would be like crushed stone, then sand, then the paver.
So Jim, that, if they use like 6 inches of crushed stone, that would actually increase the capability of stormwater at that. Would that be something that the town engineer could work with?
Yeah, that is something that if it's not set in something that is impermeable, you do get a little bit of water seeping in between the cracks. Down with the sand and stuff.
Right. And then as a question, it looks like the topography here, Larry, I'm sorry, I forget your last name, but he's on the left side of the property here. And from the topography identified, it seems that he's actually higher than the Perry's in topography. So Jim, are you aware of if there's stormwater coming from Larry's site onto the Perry's and then onto the neighbors? Appears to be with Wayne Martin's. Are you aware of any town issues with regard to stormwater traveling in that direction?
I'm not aware of any issues, but as Mr. Miller stated, these lots are graded where the water comes down off the road. In most cases, the houses are higher than the road. In the case of these properties, it actually goes down according to the topography provided 3 or 4 feet from the road to the house.
So Matt's got a point about Mr. Miller's water runoff heading to the Perry's property, and would that be enough for that seepage pit? Would that be enough to carry all that water?
I don't believe the water's really coming from necessarily either property.
Okay.
It's just, it appears to me just from the looking plan,
Perry property,
minor amounts of water going back.
Anthony, Tony's not, sorry, the Perrys aren't responsible for Larry's property. They're responsible for their own portion of whatever added impervious they have. It's not on them to solve all the drainage issues in the neighborhood. And it's more than likely that this neighborhood has the same problems of every other place in Lower Makefield where water does pond because of the clay in the soil. The board is responsible for making sure it doesn't get worse, which is, I believe, what Larry's concerns are.
Correct.
Thank you, Matt. Anybody else want to say something? Any other public comment?
No.
Fred, Larry, you need to say anything else? You want to add anything else, Mr. Miller?
No, I think you brought up some good points, and I have nothing additional to add.
Okay. All right. It looks like a fairly decent design to me, I have to say, looking at a lot of stuff over the years. If there's nothing else, is there anybody else that wants to participate in the audience with this that would like to have, that has a concern?
No more comments.
Okay, township's not participating, I assume. All right, would anybody like to make a motion about this particular appeal?
I'll make a motion. Making a motion to approve Appeal 20-1863 as designed on the zoning compliance plan for the Perry property dated 5/8/2020, subject to the town engineer's review, approval, and of the detention system. And I'd like to add the patio system as discussed with the loose laid set in sand with a gravel sub base. Again, that's subject to the town engineer's review and approval.
I agree with that.
We were going to add trees in the back, weren't we?
Yes. Trees along the one line by the seepage pit. Was that correct? there might be a little depression there.
Okay.
I'm not sure we actually determined where, and I'm not sure if the applicant has any ideas where they might like to plant trees, or if they're not in favor of planting trees, maybe do something else instead.
Well, if you have to plant trees for this, with the applicant, Mr. Perry?
Yeah.
Are you, if we need to do that for an additional mitigation, that may happen because of some ponding, would you be okay with that?
That's no problem.
Okay, there you go. You want to add that? Do we need to add that to the motion?
Do you want to add it that way, or do you want to leave it with the, subject to the town engineer's review?
Yes.
Approval, so he has more of a toolbox that he can work with and work with the Perrys.
I agree, Matt. Yes. Okay, that being said, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Nope.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Nope. Nobody? Approved.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You got it. Good night now. All right, what's next?
That's it. Other business.
Any other business?
Jim, do we have an agenda for July 7th?
I just want to let you know that we have no applications for July 7th. So if the board feels so inclined, that you can cancel that meeting. We do have issues for the July 21st.
Okay.
I feel so inclined to move to cancel July 7th.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that meeting is canceled for July 7th. All right. Nice job. I guess that's it then, right?
Just a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Meeting adjourned.
Thanks. Have a good night, guys.
See you, everybody.
Night, everybody.
Bye.
Great job. Thanks.